to meaningfully lower healthcare costs for people across the country. The question that I get asked the most from people with Medicare is why do their prescription drug costs, why are they so expensive? I absolutely understand their concerns. Prescription medications are essential to staying healthy. Historically, under the Medicare prescription drug program, or Part D, there's been no limit to what people pay for prescriptions every year, making it hard to afford them alongside basic needs. Thanks to the new law, people on Medicare will soon have more predictable costs. Starting in 2025, people with Medicare Part D will pay no more than $2,000 out of pocket for prescription drugs each year. They'll also be able to afford the medicine they need, like insulin. Under the new law, next year insulin will be covered from the first dollar with no deductible, and people will pay no more than $35 a month for each covered insulin product. The law also empowers our agency, CMS, to negotiate the price of certain drugs on behalf of millions of people with Medicare coverage, making the costliest treatments more affordable and accessible. For the nearly 64 million people with Medicare, this law will bring peace of mind, better health, and brighter futures. It's the answer we've been waiting for. I'm excited about what's to come, and I look forward to a continued dialogue with you, our partners, on executing the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to improving access to care and affordability for all people. Thank you again to Vice President Harris for gathering us today, and I'd like to turn it over now to Gina Upchurch, the Founding Executive Director of Senior Farm Assist.
Please welcome Governor Roy Cooper.
I'm not Gina, but she's back there doing great things, and she's upstairs with us talking to so many people who are working so hard to make sure that people get the care that they need. It's so great to be at the Durham Center for Senior Life. Welcome to all of you. I know many of you find this place a wonderful place to be, and thank you for the work that you're doing. And I want to welcome once again to North Carolina, actually for the 5th time since she's been in this administration, the great Vice President Kamala Harris. Great to have you. But as another great vice president once said, Hubert Humphrey, and I paraphrase, the moral test of government is how we treat our children and the elderly. The Biden-Harris administration is striving with all of its might to meet that moral test, and it is succeeding. Let's start on this end. Children. We know, science shows, that early childhood education is critical for a child for their success in school and in life. In North Carolina, we've taken $800 million of American Rescue Plan funds and invested it in quality child care all across North Carolina. And that is a fantastic thing. Paying these child care workers more, making sure we have places for parents to keep their children while they go back into the workforce. But today, we're celebrating the other end of that moral test. Our seniors. And so many of you are with us today. Those who have contributed so much to all of us. People who've served our state and our country, who've raised families, who've helped create positive futures for everybody else. And so many of our seniors are helping today. I've seen it when we've had natural disasters. Volunteers, mentors, serving others, and providing inspiration to their children and their grandchildren. Thank you for that. So how are we going to treat them? Do we make them choose between food and medicine? Too many have to. We talk to people today who are paying thousands of dollars for prescription drugs. Talk to somebody who was talking about the expense of getting a shingles vaccine, Ms. Sharon Lawrence. And do we fail to provide the direct care that they need at the most fragile point of their life? Too many are going without that. Well, the Biden-Harris administration and Democrats in Congress have stepped up to the plate with the Inflation Reduction Act, lowering the cost of life-saving drugs, capping the price of insulin, appropriating more funds so we can pay those angels who are providing direct care services. And they are doing the Lord's work, I'll tell you that. And to pay for it, they're making the big corporations carry their fair share of the load. Now that is stepping up. And wouldn't you think that lowering prescription drug costs, capping insulin, would be a unanimous vote? Wouldn't you think? All you have to do is talk to people who are paying so much for their drugs. It's really immoral. But the problem is, too many were talking to lobbyists and not the people who were affected. But Democrats in Congress listened, and Vice President Kamala Harris cast the deciding vote. And now we're going to have lower costs in North Carolina. Finally, one more thing, and we in North Carolina are too familiar with this issue. Biden-Harris administration has sweetened the pot to encourage states that haven't done it to expand Medicaid. There is more money for us if we do it. You hear that, legislature? You guys hear that? It's time to get it done. North Carolina must expand Medicaid. It's the moral thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do. You know what? We're losing lives every month because people don't have health insurance. In the richest country in the world, over 1 million people in North Carolina don't have it. But guess what else? North Carolina is forfeiting $521 million a month that we could be getting to help insure North Carolinians if we just do it. It is time for us to do it. The Biden-Harris administration has opened the door wide. It's time for North Carolina to step through. I'm so grateful to be here with North Carolina's finest seniors. We are so grateful to you, and we are going to keep fighting for you in the halls of Washington and in the halls of Raleigh. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Congressman David Price.
Hello, Durham. Hello, everyone. Great to see all of you. I am Congressman David Price, representing the 4th Congressional District, which includes the Durham Center for Senior Life, where we are right now. And we couldn't be happier to welcome the Vice President, Kamala Harris, back to Durham. She's been here many times, and we'll welcome her anytime she wants to come. I join you this afternoon energized, as I hope you are, by the historically productive Biden-Harris administration. Remember, we started with the American Rescue Plan. Then came the bipartisan infrastructure law. Then came my piece of the action, the omnibus appropriations bills for 2022, with historic advances in transportation and housing. Then came the CHIPS and Science Act. Then came the PACT Act, including long overdue justice for Camp Lejeune families. And now taking a transformational step to fight inflation, to cut health care and prescription drug costs through the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA. What a record of achievement. You know, we did this on a bipartisan basis when we could, but I tell you, when we had to muster Democratic votes to get the job done, we did that too. The Inflation Reduction Act will lower drug costs for seniors. It will allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. It will cap out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs for seniors at $2,000 annually. And it will cap the price for insulin, that critical drug, cap the price of insulin at $35 a month. In our 4th district alone, think about what the Inflation Reduction Act will do for people with Affordable Care Act coverage. It will cut the cost of that coverage in half, cut it by half, for some 47,000 people right here in our own district. And as the governor just stressed, that's especially important because of the Republican General Assembly's refusal to expand Medicaid. So, the Inflation Reduction Act is something to celebrate, and we're very, very happy to have the Vice President here today to help us do just that. Thank you very much.
Please welcome, from Durham pharmacist, Gina Upchurch.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us today at the Durham Center for Senior Life to learn more about the Inflation Reduction Act and how it will impact the lives of Medicare beneficiaries across our nation. I'm Gina Upchurch. I'm a pharmacist specializing in geriatrics and public health, and I'm the founding director of the nonprofit organization Senior Pharmacists, located upstairs. Thank you. Senior Pharmacist opened its doors in 1994 to help older adults with limited incomes obtain and better manage their medications. In 2006, when the Medicare Part D drug benefit was enacted, we began helping older adults and adults with disabilities navigate their complex Medicare coverage options. This made us very familiar with medication challenges for older adults. Moreover, this is why we are very supportive of this new federal legislation that is a game changer for Medicare beneficiaries across our nation. In particular, the new law will support individuals with multiple chronic conditions requiring a number of medicines, insulin included, as well as people with cancer and other serious conditions who are prescribed medications they simply cannot afford. The new legislation makes significant strides by redesigning the Part D drug benefit. This will help keep medication prices down as opposed to the annual, sometimes stunning increases. At the same time, it is projected to reduce federal spending. Honor of a lifetime, and with deep gratitude, I introduce the individual who broke the tie and cast the 51st vote on the U.S. Senate floor that led President Biden to sign the Inflation Reduction Act as the law of the land on August 16th, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Please have a seat. Good afternoon. And it is so good to be back in North Carolina and in Durham. Governor, I thank you. I was saying to Roy Cooper, who I've known for years, he and I were attorneys general together when I was Attorney General of California and he, of course, in North Carolina. And he's been so important as a partner to the President and me with everything that we've been doing, from the initial work that we did around what we need to do to bring relief for small businesses to the work that we've done with the infrastructure law, and now, of course, this. So, Governor, thank you always for your leadership. It's so good to be back with you. And Gina, thank you for your work. This afternoon we had a tour of the facility and got to meet with some extraordinary leaders, including our seniors who have been providing such an important voice on these issues and having the ability with such courage to tell your personal stories, and I'm looking at a few of them right now, to tell your personal stories in a way that really gives voice to so many folks who are not in this room right now but need to be heard. So I thank you for that. And Mayor O'Neill, where are you? I want to thank you for all of your leadership. It's good to be back with you again as well. Yes. And we are joined by so many leaders. I see some old friends, and I mean long-standing, we don't say that. And many new ones, and I want to thank you, including our administrator for the Centers of Medicaid and Medicare Services, Chiquita Brooks-LaSure. Where are you? There she is. I will tell you, she has broke so many barriers in terms of her leadership and being the first in so many ways. But on this and so many issues, she is always fighting for the people of our country, and in particular those who deserve to have the dignity that comes with having a nation think about their care and doing it in a way that is thoughtful and comprehensive. So thank you, Madam Administrator, for that. Congressman David Price, I see you there. Thank you. You have been representing this district for over 30 years and, again, a real champion for North Carolina, and I've seen him in the halls of Congress doing the work of making sure that we are always thoughtful about this community. So I have worked with many folks over the years, and I will tell you that the folks who are leaders who I have just mentioned in this room know this state so well and the dreams of the people of this state. And so that's why I'm here, because the President and I wanted to make sure that we were highlighting the work of the leaders here in Durham and in North Carolina on this very important issue that impacts people around our nation. So, that being said, let's understand. Today in America, there are more than 50 million people over the age of 65. And North Carolina has one of the largest and fastest growing populations of seniors in the country, with currently, and it's growing, just under 2 million seniors. And who are we talking about? We're talking about folks that have spent their entire lives working hard, building families, and contributing to their community, and creating a path for so many of us to follow. However, far too often, our nation does not provide our seniors with the support and the resources they need. In fact, I am sad to share with you that in our nation, right now, at least 9% of our seniors live in poverty. Among women, 80 years old and over, that number jumps to 14%. Today, 1 in 10 seniors reports experiencing elder abuse. And that's an issue I've been working on since back in my days when I was district attorney, and on the issue of elder abuse, far too often they suffer silently for fear that to tell anyone might mean that they will be deprived of their ability to live independently and be taken seriously and treated with respect. And today, millions of seniors still struggle to afford the health care they need and they deserve. But our administration is determined to lower health care costs for our seniors, and a key part of that work is lowering the cost of insulin. So why is that a big deal? Well, because today, 1 in 3 seniors in our nation has diabetes. And for seniors on Medicare, a month of insulin can cost more than $100. Extremely expensive. I've talked with our seniors in different parts of the country who talk about how they ration their insulin because they cannot afford to refill their prescription. I met with one of the community pharmacists just about a few minutes ago, talking about what he has seen when seniors come into the pharmacy and say, I can't refill my prescription yet because I'm not ready to be able to pay that until the beginning of next month. Right? So folks who need a prescription filled because a doctor, a medical health professional said that's exactly what you need to alleviate your pain or improve the quality of your life, unable to fill the prescription that would do just that. Folks who talk about with their insulin, they then, to stretch it out, will do 1 day on and 1 day off, which means, and the medical professionals here can tell you, to do that means that they endure dizziness and nausea and blurry vision because they simply don't have any other choice but to try and stretch it out. And understand the importance of this in terms of the numbers of folks we're talking about and the seriousness of this issue. A diabetic who goes for too long without insulin could fall into a coma or even die. And no one should have to worry and wonder about whether they will be able to afford the insulin that keeps them alive. And that is why, starting next year, our administration will cap the cost of insulin prescriptions for people on Medicare to $35 a month. And frankly, it's long overdue. And the benefit will be to cover at least 1.4 million people in our country, as part of our administration's larger campaign to lower the cost of prescription medication across the board. For years, and I've seen this over the years of being an attorney general, Roy knows this, when we defend consumers' rights, to being in the Senate and watching it from Washington, D.C. and those lobbyists, to being vice president. For years, the largest drug companies have made billions of dollars in profits, selling drugs for 10 to 100 times what they cost to make. For years, Big Pharma, that's what we call that group, Big Pharma, has fought to grow their profits by preventing Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices. And for years, they won. Because you see, Medicare was required by law, to pay whatever price the drug companies set. But not anymore. Not anymore. So last month, our administration gave Medicare the power to negotiate with Big Pharma on behalf of our seniors. And understand what that means. It means, yes, we're changing the game, but it also means this, in terms of breaking down the issue. It means that our seniors should not be out there having to fight for themselves against these powerful interests at a stage of life where they have earned the right to be treated with dignity by their community and their society and their nation. They should not have to be out there advocating for themselves, especially when they are at a moment of need in terms of being in pain or being sick, and just simply needing to be able to have access and to be able to afford the thing that will give them a better quality of life. So this single change, allowing Medicare to negotiate, will lower the price of prescription drugs for millions of Americans. Another healthcare issue for millions of our fellow Americans, including our seniors, is the issue of hearing aids. Everybody here knows what I'm talking about, right? It's a big issue. It's a big issue for those who know and want to talk with folks who need a hearing aid, and for those who need a hearing aid. It's a big issue for all of us. Millions of people in our nation depend on hearing aids to help them live a full and independent life. To speak, for example, with the teller at the bank or the person who is the server at the restaurant, to hear the sermon in church, or to listen to a grandchild talk about their first day of school. But hearing aids are expensive. Sometimes they cost more than $5,000 a pair. And for people who are 70 years and older who need hearing aids, the numbers I've looked at tell us that only 1 in 3 of those in that category has ever actually used a hearing aid because of all these barriers to getting them. So this is why President Biden and I recently took a long overdue step to make hearing aids available over the counter, right? So no prescription. Go to the community pharmacist, right? So this will reduce the average cost of a pair of hearing aids by thousands of dollars. Soon, Americans with mild to moderate hearing loss will be able to buy their hearing aids at the local drugstore or pharmacy, no prescription needed. Because you know what you need. On some of these things, folks can self-diagnose, right? I know I can't hear something that I want to hear. And so it's practical as well as absolutely intended to bring down the cost and allow so many people to access and afford the help they need. And so that brings me to my final point for today, which is the important work that we are doing to cap out-of-pocket prescription drug costs. So imagine this. Imagine, for example, a 70-year-old woman goes in for her annual checkup, and she complains about stiffness and pain in her joints. And after running some tests, her doctor diagnoses her with rheumatoid arthritis. And let's say a few days later, she goes down the street to her pharmacy to fill the prescription. And she learns that the copay for a single month of pills is $600 or $700. Across our nation, seniors with chronic medical conditions are paying as much as $10,000 a year for the medication they need to simply stay healthy and stay alive. Seniors who have to choose between paying their rent and filling their prescription. Seniors who are forced to cut their pills in half because they cannot afford their full prescription, a prescription for the dosage that they actually require. This has got to stop. It's got to stop. And this is why, beginning in 2025, our administration will cap out-of-pocket prescription drug cost to $2,000 a year for people on Medicare. We need to extend it beyond that. But for Medicare, you know, we've been fighting to actually extend a lot of this beyond Medicare, but this is where we are right now. The fight is not over. But what this means is that no matter how much your prescriptions cost, no matter how many prescriptions you have, and so many of our seniors have a dozen or more prescriptions that they need to take, for you, you will pay no more than $2,000 a year for your medicine. And so that means if you are on Medicare, or if you will soon be on Medicare, you will no longer have to worry that one terrible diagnosis will bankrupt you or your loved ones. So for President Biden and me, it really does come down to this. Access to health care should be a right, not a privilege for those who can afford it. It's that basic. And just think about it. Affordable health care it's about your health, and it's about more. First of all, we're talking about an essential need, right? We're not talking about a luxury. We're talking about an essential need. Also, access to affordable health care is about independence. Independence from debt, independence from fear, independence from pain. And affordable health care and access to affordable health care is also about peace of mind. The peace of mind that comes from knowing you will never have to choose between your physical well-being and your financial well-being. And affordable health care ultimately is about dignity. The dignity to which all people are entitled and deserve. And so that is why President Biden and I will continue with this fight, so that every person in our nation and every senior in our nation can access the health care they need and deserve. And with that, may God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you. Thank you.